Have you ever had clients where you're just like scratching your head and you're like, oh my God, I really have a hard time working with this client. It's very frustrating. Maybe you've had multiple sessions with them and you're still kind of spinning around the same thing. Maybe they're the talkers where they're not, really feeling into their emotions or they intellectualize or overanalyze things. If you've had those clients and you feel that things are getting very, very slow with them, what is my number one best tip? And this tip is going to sound very abrupt and very uncomfortable because it is something that is really not taught inside traditional hypnosis training. And so and this is especially useful if you have a client who's just yapping, right? Like they're yapping, they talk about the problem. And sometimes what they're talking about has nothing to do with the actual problem that they just get. So they're just so stuck in their mind in the stories they've made and they overly cognitively intellectualize everything. And so my biggest tip for this type of client is to just interrupt them. And I know that this is very uncomfortable. I was super uncomfortable with this, especially first learning conversational hypnosis, because the people pleasing tendencies were too strong to, to actually interrupt my client. But learning this very, very quickly, especially with the talkers and the yappers, is going to speed up your sessions. And of course, don't be an asshole, rude dick about it, right? There is a way to compassionately interrupt, especially if what the clients are doing are so just in their head that they've gone through these thought loops and story loops over and over again that is really not serving them, right? So if you have a client and say it's like a client who wants help with sugar addiction or something, right? Sugar dependence. And they're like, yes, I know logically that sugar is not good for me. I know that I need to take it in moderation. But there are just some times when I'm really stressed out and I just grab for that chocolate. And then one day, and then I look and then the whole thing is empty. The whole biscuit tray is empty. I've eaten all of it. And I do this time and time again. When the weekend comes, it's just like I don't have anything. And they're just stuck in this loop, right? Of how they keep eating sugar. And what you want to do is really just interrupt them in the middle of it, especially once you hear something very, very juicy, like just what when I said there, whenever I get stressed, I keep doing this, right? So I would just butt in and interrupt the client and say, wait. What happens when you're stressed? Like, tell me what happens in your body when you're stressed. So you're pausing them, you're stopping that thought loop, and they're gonna go, they're gonna pause and think about it. And sometimes for some clients, you might need to do this repeatedly, like maybe 10 times within your sessions before they actually pause and actually think about the answers to the questions. Because, if you want to look at it this way in the clients, right? There's also going to be some, like a lot of motivation. If they paid you, they're motivated to also want to solve the problem. They just don't know how, and they don't realize how intellectualizing the problem is actually worse for them. So by interrupting them, you are teaching them to stop that shit, stop putting more seed into the thought loops, more fuel into that negative thought loop that's ruining their lives. You're going to stop it and you're going to place their attention somewhere else. And by exploring what happens when they're stressed out, do you think you'll be able to get to the root of the problem faster instead of allowing them to talk about how they can eat, a whole bag or a whole bar of candy in one sitting? That's not like like rehearsed that time and time again in their lives. That's not helping them to talk about that. So interrupt your client. Sometimes, especially if it's your first session, there's going to be some venting process that is good for clients to air it out. But if you've had, say, multiple sessions with a client and they just keep talking, it is time to interrupt. Even your first session, I would not fuck around. This is what I tell my students because I used to do this. Like, I will not I no longer fuck around inside sessions in terms of allowing clients to go too far. Like maybe the first two or three questions will allow them to just vent it out. But after that, we are going deep, right? I'm not here to talk about the conscious fluff and conscious bullshit that they've told themselves. I am here to help them explore the driver, the unconscious driver of their problem. And that's not through talking about eating all of the treats, right? It is through looking into their internal experience as the problem is happening. So that's what I would do. Interrupt, 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 ask a different question, and ask a question that is more directed to retrieving unconscious information, like what happens when they're stressed out, right? That is a big thing, as you know, for emotional eating. Like what is happening? Why is their coping mechanism going to sugar when stressed? That is worth the exploration instead of, you know, and some might default, some hypnotherapists might default to asking, okay, so what would you like to do instead? Well, let's try that. That's what they're coming to us with, right? Because they don't know. So really exploring that problem, that's a video for a different day. Interrupt the client, especially the members. Them overthinking or analyzing is not good for them. It makes their problem worse because it solidifies more of those neural pathways that loop around the negative thinking. So break that. You set the example, and you might need to break it at times before your client actually gives you unconscious information, but it will be worth the interruption. And obviously, don't be an asshole about it. Be curious and just say, wait, hold on. What happens when you're stressed out? Like, why sugar instead of something else? That seeing their reasoning, seeing their thinking is going to be a lot more helpful.